Alright guys, what's up? Today I'm going to make a special video here. We're going to talk about CRT TVs or tube TVs, and I want to talk about specific TVs in general. Television sets that are dating 1989 and back. I want to talk about that. I'm going to go on a little rant here, give my personal opinion and speculation about it, and you guys can comment and tell me what you think about it. But this is my collection of pre-1989 and back CRT cathode tube television sets. Tell you a little bit of backstory on, why I like these TVs. Well, when I was younger, in the early 2000s, when I was a teenager, I used to dumpster dive. And you couldn't believe the stuff that people threw out back then. I did it for a while, and then with all the crime and everything going up and, everything, it changed over the years. But I would find people would throw them out all the time. Tube TVs, and this is a picture here from the early 2000s of some of the tube TVs I'd find, and they'd be an easy 10, the bigger ones $20 flip back then. Here's an earlier picture of some of my tube TVs back then. I'd find them from the 70s, the 80s, 30, 40 years, 20, 30 years old. They just built these things to last, and I'd sell them quite frequently back then for like $10 to $20. So, what am I here to talk about today? Well, I've noticed that tube TVs are becoming very hard to find, if not scarce. And I go out to the thrift stores religiously. You never see them. You just never see them where I'm at in the wild. Now, I want to talk about why I feel like they've become scarce. One is that a lot of them did not survive. And why did they not survive? Well, because people back then didn't appreciate them like you or I or this group does. So they didn't feel like they were much value. Plus, with everything converting from digital to analog, they became obsolete. But these things were meant to last. They have a superior picture. They don't break down like plasma TVs do. You don't have to worry about the screen ever going out. Yeah, they're heavy. Yeah, they're bulky, but they were built to last. Now let's talk about why, and this is just my personal opinion, why they've become scarce. There's several reasons. One, in my later years of dumpster diving, I noticed a lot of TVs being smashed out. Either they bust the screen or they tear it apart. And they did that because they wanted this little bit of copper wire in the back. They would mine out the copper from these old television sets, from the coil back here. That was the one reason. The second reason is people decided to do stupid stuff with them. Target practice, painting them. I've even heard about people converting their television sets into fish tanks. They just did stupid things with them. They were meant to be watched. It was the staple of every American household to have the television set in the living room with the TV tray. That's what they were meant for. They weren't meant for, and that's my opinion, doing this kind of thing. Now also, one of the things too is that thrift stores don't take them in for donation anymore. They take in plasma TVs or flat screens, but they don't take in the CRT tube TVs. And especially like the 80s stuff. You'll see the 90s tube TVs occasionally, the early 2000s. But like pre-1989 and back, you just rarely ever see it. But Goodwill in my area in Arizona, they stopped taking them for donation. And I know like when the analog to digital conversion happened, shortly after that, Goodwill was starting to off the CRT TVs for like $1. and then eventually they just stopped taking them. They said, we are no longer taking these for donation anymore. So you just don't find them in the thrift store. Now, every once in a while they do pop up, but it's very rare. And the ones that did survive were a lot of these ones, like the little portable ones from the 80s. Those are quite common. I have numerous of them. But it's these guys right here that have become increasingly rare. The 13-inch TVs, the 19-inch TVs, the 27-inch, the ones that you actually sit down and watch a movie on, not the portable, little handheld portable TVs that you see. But yeah, they just stopped taking them in. They've also become quite collectible. The ones that you do find, they are asking obscene amounts of money for. A lot of the cabinet ones survive too. So like this is a record player cabinet, but a lot of the bigger, bulkier vintage units did survive because, you couldn't just smash one of those things out or throw them away. They were in people's houses for a long time. So those do pop up all the time just because they were so bulky. But they've just become increasingly more difficult to find. I rarely ever see them out in the wild for sale in a retail setting. But that's just my take on it. If anybody else has their opinion, you can definitely comment. I'd love to hear what you say, but that's just my view and my opinion on vintage 80s and back TVs.